in Neve Zedek. We are a bit over a mile from Jaffa. Old Jaffa is located this way, some 2 kilometers south from here. And Tel Aviv, where it began and where we already visited, and this is the area of Achuzat Bait and Kol Bo Shalom and the Rothschild Boulevard. I hope you remember this area. Is located about 15 minutes walk this way, meaning, well, more or less north. We are right in between. So the story goes like that. Old Jaffa existed for about 4,000 years in a row. And then towards the end of the 19th century, the growing community, the growing Jewish population, the Jewish community of Jaffa felt fed up. And this what led to the creation of Tel Aviv, as I already told you on the other tour back in 1909. But before the Jewish community in Jaffa was ready spiritually and financially for creating a brand new, first of its kind Jewish city of Tel Aviv, they decided to create a neighborhood, just a small neighborhood, and this is what they called it, a neighborhood which belongs to Jaffa. So it's something new, it's something modern, something much cleaner and nicer than it used to be in Jaffa, but it is not a brand new city. And this first of its kind modern Jewish neighborhood was called Neve Zedek, and that's where we are. Right behind me, well, in front of me here, and behind me over here and over there. Today, this belongs to the best, the most successful Center for Performing Arts, which is called Suzanne Dalal. But this was originally the school for Jewish girls. It was not an Orthodox school, but yet as it was traditionally, you know, boys and girls would be studying separately. So this was the school for girls. And today we have Bat Sheva dancing, what you call it, dancing group of Bat Sheva, one of the best known, the best ballet groups in Israel. And this is their center, the center of Bat Sheva Theater and Yaron Yerushalmi and Ulam Inbal. And generally speaking, if you want to see a dance, a good dance in a good surrounding, this is where you will come. But let's go back in history. So if this is a school for girls, right across the square, there was a school for boys. Okay, we will see it in a minute. So we have so many kids, and kids need sometimes a nurse, better if they can afford a doctor. And so in this case, for these two schools and for this Jewish community of Neve Zedek and another neighborhood right behind me, which was called Neve Shalom, so they hired a doctor, a physician, and he lived in here. Well, this place was used later for different needs. Today there is just a I don't know, staff kept for the theater, but this is where this physician used to live. And he was a pediatric, but he later became much, much better known as a poet. And actually today, we in Israeli schools, we study his poems and his songs for the Bagrut, you know, for the graduation test. And nobody remembers that he was actually a physician. So this is Shaul Chernichovsky. I don't know if you're familiar with his name, but he's one of the best known poets in Hebrew today. He passed away quite a few years ago. And Shaul Chernichovsky was privileged to be on, see, I have my wallet here. Yeah. Okay, so this is a bill of 50 shekels. And this is Shaul Chernichovsky, and this is where he started his career in this little house behind me. taking care of the kids. So let's take a look at some of the pictures which were made by David Tartakover in the end of the in the late 80s, when the whole complex of the two schools were fixed and redesigned and became the Center for Performing Arts, which is called Suzanne Dalal. So as part of the changes and as part of the redecoration of the area, which was neglected for many, many years, and actually the municipality was about to demolish the whole thing and just build regular houses. So as part of the new beginning of it, these pictures were made. Okay, so we have 3 parts of this beautifully decorated tiled wall. This gentleman, his name is Aharon Shlush. Aharon Shlush arrived, well, some books mention Morocco, others mention Algiers, so I'm not quite sure where he came from, but we definitely know that he came to the land of Israel during the Ottoman times, of course, as a little orphan, because the sheep they used to come from Northern Africa didn't make it in one piece here. He was saved after the disaster, and he found himself being about 3 years old on his own. He survived, he made it, and he became one of the wealthiest people of the Jewish population in the end of the 19th century, thanks to his trading talents. So Aharon Shlush purchased the land, whatever was later Neve Zedek, and then he was willing to sell the land to a Jewish organization, and that Jewish organization divided his land into 48 plots. Now, he did not give it for free. I mean, he was actually trying to make money, but he was also Jewish and he was also a Zionist. And therefore, he said, okay, I'm going to sell you my land so you will be able to establish a new neighborhood, and I will not take too much money for it. But you have to start building the houses right away, so I will know that it's not just an investment. I really want to see my house being built in this new neighborhood, and I want others to actually live here. You know, there was a profit, but it was also some ideology. And this is Aharon Shlush, the owner of the land. And later we will see the house which he built for himself, and he moved from Jaffa to here. And yeah, he was the wealthiest person of Neve Zedek. By the way, Neve Zedek means the Oasis of Justice. Okay, this came from the book of Jeremiah in the Bible. So if you look at Aharon Shlush, he looks quite, quite satisfied, quite happy. He seems like somebody who accomplished what he wanted, and he accomplished indeed. And ever since Neve Zedek was established in 1897, and ever since, this is a very strong, very nice, very prosperous, very successful, very demanded in terms of real estate neighborhood in Tel Aviv. So it's all good. So he has a good reason to be happy. On the other hand, if you look at this gentleman here, well, they look quite similar, but this guy, he looks sad. I don't know if it is possible for you to see it on Zoom. I hope so. Anyhow, from this point, when I can touch him, I can definitely tell you that Aharon Shlush is much happier than Zerach Baranet. And Zerach Baranet, he has a whole different life history some other time. He best associated with Petach Tikva. Petach Tikva is one of the largest cities in Israel today, but Petach Tikva was one of the very first villages, very first farming communities, even prior to the first Aliyah. So anyhow, we have a very well-known song in Israel, which mentions Yoel, Moshe, Salomon, and Zerach Baranet. So Zerach Baranet made a fortune, an incredible amount of money, and he invested that money in different aspects. He was a great Zionist. He really wanted to help the poor Jews in Jaffa and Jerusalem. And Zerach Baranet purchased a large plot of land right next to the plot of land of Aharon Shlush. So we are next to Neve Zedek. Basically, this is where Neve Zedek starts. This is the southern end, and we will be moving north. And if we start moving south from here, so we will be moving into another neighborhood, which was established 3 years later, which was called Neve Shalom. And Neve Shalom was established on the plot of land which belonged to Zerach Baranet. Now, Aharon Shlush, remember him, he sold his land to the company, and then the company built a neighborhood. Zerach Baranet said, no, I don't want to sell my land. I want to give it for free. I want to donate it for Jews to move and settle and be happy. And that's, by the way, it's a bit similar to what happened to Mishkenot Sha'ananim in Jerusalem when Moshe Montefiore purchased the land, built houses, invited the Jews to move in, and the Jews said, no, thank you. So in this case, Jews who purchased lands, they created a beautiful, prosperous, successful neighborhood, while the Jews who moved to the land of Zerach Baranet, they never really succeeded. You know, this is an amazing true story, but sometimes if you spend more time, you're more successful and eventually make more money than people who did not want to pay originally for their houses, their jobs, their education. Just think about it. But anyhow, Neve Zedek is great, and Neve Shalom of Zerach Baranet never went too well, and it doesn't do much good today as well. And that's why Zerach Baranet is not so happy. Now, if you take a look at this gentleman, we will be visiting his house from outside because it is inhabited now, but I do want you to take a look at him and try to remember his face, this gentleman here. His name is Shimon Rokach, and he was known as Hasar. Hasar is like the minister, okay? It's like sir. So Shimon Rokach, Hasar, we're going to talk about him a bit later. We're going to see his house, but just keep in mind. Well, this is the school for girls. This is the school for girls, and we were right behind the school 5 minutes ago. Later, we will move to the front, and then you will see that front more or less as you see it on this picture. Again, this picture was made in 1989. According to photos, so this is what the original school for girls looked like, and this is what it looks like today, even though today we have ballet inside instead of teachers. Here, you can see girls. You see that all of them are well, modestly dressed. All of them are wearing skirts, just like myself today, and they're doing some gymnastics. They're doing some exercises. I would not recommend you exercising with a skirt, but what could you do about it? This is a school for girls, and this is the stamp of the company which actually built Neve Zedek. It says Chevrat Neve Zedek Lebinyan Batim. The company Neve Zedek for building houses. While up here, you can see a train, and above the train, you can see the bridge. So that bridge is called Gesher Shlush, the bridge of Shlush, named after Aharon Shlush. And this is the train, the very first train of the land of Israel, the train which connected Jaffa with Jerusalem. Quite a few of you, I believe, are familiar with the first train station in Jerusalem, not too far from King David's Hotel, not too far from the old city of Jerusalem. Today, we go there mostly for lunch and dinner. So the first railway station in Jaffa is located less than a mile away from here. And then the train would go all the way from Jaffa to Jerusalem. And today we do have train connecting Tel Aviv with Jerusalem, but it has different different ways. So both railway stations are now used for shopping and eating, and no train. But we will be standing on that bridge later, and you will see what happened to the former railway station. And finally, here we have some of the people who used to inhabit Neve Zedek, and Neve Zedek became great and famous thanks to them, among others. So some of them are totally unfamiliar for you. So, but let's see. This is Rabbi Kook here. Rabbi Kook used to be the chief rabbi of Jaffa, and later he moved to Jerusalem and he became the chief rabbi there. He was a great, amazing rabbi. Just to mention one thing about him, okay, and the reason why I'm talking about him here is because he actually lived in Neve Zedek. His house did not survive. It was demolished quite a few years ago. But so back in 1913, there was a Masa HaRabbanim. There was a journey of the rabbis. Back in 1913, a group of rabbis led by Harav Kook, they decided to tour the land and to visit the kibbutzim and the moshavim which were established at the time. You know, we are talking about just before World War I, and to see what's going on. You know, all these socialist, secular, young, non-Orthodox Jews. So they were traveling, and some rabbis freaked out. They could not stand, you know, these young boys and girls living together, not wearing a kippah, a yarmulke, working on Shabbat. It was just too much for them. But Rabbi Kook, he was dancing with them. And Rabbi Kook, he said an amazing phrase. He said, I will say it in Hebrew and then I will translate. He said, Hayashan yitchadesh v'hachadash yitkadesh. Okay? That means that the old stuff will be renewed. The old stuff must be renewed, and the new stuff will become holy and blessed. Okay, this is something he said while visiting one of these farming communities up north called Korea. So just a person to admire. Until present day, we have a Jewish Orthodox movement of followers of Rabbi Kook. It's called Mossad Kook, all over Israel. And here, this gentleman, okay, quite a few of you probably know his name. Just look at him, young, nice, handsome, well-educated, okay? He became a writer. We will see where he lived here in Neve Zedek before he moved to Jerusalem. And we will see what it looked like when he became old and very famous. All right, so a writer. And this is Dvorah Baron, a great writer, a great poetess who lived here. We will see exactly where. So the sun, yeah, we are facing the sun now, so I hope it's not too difficult. I just want to walk around a little bit. I want you to see this nice open square. which was designed to be an open square when the two schools used to be here. So boys and girls, even though they studied separately, they will be able to share a common square and meet each other at the school breaks. When the area was restored and renovated, they wanted to, they wanted to preserve the atmosphere. They wanted to preserve what it looked like in the beginning of the 20th century. And in the same time, they wanted it to become a memorial. And therefore, you can see the citrus trees here. Most of them are orange trees, obviously to remind us of the Jaffa oranges and the oranges which used to grow around us before Tel Aviv was so big. And they even placed some water channels. There is actually running water inside, because this is how the orange and citrus plantations used to be irrigated back then. So this building, which is being renovated right now behind me, this is the school for boys, okay, which is also used for theater performances. Not now, like now we have no performances whatsoever, but normally. And this is the school for girls, and you can see that it actually looks like the picture we saw before. So now I have a question for you guys. Well, today schools in Israel, Jewish schools, will be Hebrew speaking, and Arab schools will be Arab speaking, of course. All right. Now, in the very beginning of the 20th century, back in 1908, when these two schools were established, okay, one school was established by a Jewish French organization called Alliance, or Kiach, and the other school was established by a Ukrainian-based Jewish organization called Chovevei Tzion, okay, Lovers of Zion. Anyhow, so we have two schools, two organizations, all right? Each organization was willing to build one school. They didn't mind whether it will be for girls or for boys, but the French organization wanted the language of the education to be French, while the Ukrainian organization wanted the language of education to be Hebrew. Okay? So now you as, let's say, the committee of Neve Zedek, you have to decide whether you want the girls to learn in Hebrew or you want the boys to learn in Hebrew. Okay? You cannot have both. You have to decide. Girls Hebrew, boys French, or the other way around. Okay, that's the dilemma. What do you think? Ladies and gentlemen, any ideas? You can unmute yourself for that.
English.
English. No, there was no such option. I'm sorry. Okay, it's Hebrew or French. That's it.
They made girls French
for girls.
French for girls. Okay. And Hebrew for boys.
Yes.
Yes.
For boys, French for girls.
Right. Okay, so we have a consensus, right? So girls should study French and boys should study Hebrew, right? Okay. And by the way, Noam said it, somebody asked, why couldn't they all study Hebrew? Well, again, because we had these two organizations and each organization was willing to finance one school. All right. So now you have to make a decision. Okay. Anyhow, so, guys, each time I ask people about the dilemma, most of the time people decide exactly what you say, like boys, Hebrew. Okay. The committee, the heads of the community in Neve Zedek, they decided the other way around, because what they said was, the boys, they will know Hebrew anyhow. The boys will know Hebrew anyhow because they have to read the scriptures. They will be studying the scriptures. They will be praying. They will know Hebrew anyhow. They cannot escape it. But the girls, they will not learn Hebrew unless we teach them Hebrew. And then if the girls will be native Hebrew speakers, So when these girls become moms, they will be speaking Hebrew with their children, and then second generation will be naturally Hebrew speaking. And that's exactly what was decided, and this is exactly what they did. So the boys over there were taught in French, and the girls over here were taught in Hebrew, and then in between they would speak Hebrew, French, Russian, Polish, Ukrainian, etc. And little by little, you know, finally, we all speak Hebrew around here. Wait, guys, there is a question which I'm not sure I understood. So now Noam will show it to me. Okay, well, you see, today we are speaking of secular people, secular Jews, and I think most of my friends, they maybe visited a synagogue on Yom Kippur once a year, but back then it was not that strictly divided. I mean, the young people who established the kibbutzim, young people who would live in, let's say, kibbutz Dgania, which was established in 1910, they would not go to a shul, they would not pray at all. But the majority of the population, and definitely the Jewish community which lived in Jaffa, they will be praying. They would be studying scriptures. That was still part of their life. So even if you don't speak Hebrew to them, they will keep the tradition. They will not forget the language. Okay, again. Okay. Now we left the educational complex, and now we are walking down the street, or better to say, up the street. And this is a street called Shlush, okay, named after this wealthy Jew who purchased the land of Neve Zedek. And up there, well, this is a bit difficult location, but up here and behind me and behind this locked fence, you can see a very large and impressive building, sort of a pinkish color maybe. You can see how big it is, even by present day standards, but over 120 years ago, when this house was built, this was something incredible. This was more like a palace rather than a house. And this building, this house, was so amazing and wealthy and special that it even had a private synagogue. So now you see it's not doing so well. It really needs some repairment. But this is the private synagogue of the Shlush family. And this synagogue is an active synagogue till present day. It's not private, but it is a synagogue. By the way, this is the beginning of, you know, we're not going to do it today, but here you can see a very nice graffiti. And right across the bridge, that bridge we saw before on the wall, and now you will see it in reality. Just over the bridge, there is another neighborhood which is called Florentine. And that neighborhood used to be a German colony and an American colony. Two totally different stories. We talked about the German colony in Haifa. There is a German colony in Jerusalem. And there was a German colony right across the bridge. Present day Florentine neighborhood is full of graffiti. So if you love graffiti, this is the best place for you to go touring. Well, over there, right behind me and below me. Okay, now you are facing the south. I'm not sure you can see a crane. No, yeah, you can see the pavement down there, some sidewalks, but well, I hope you can see that down below, this is a railway. Okay, right underneath. And this is the original railway of that first railway, which connected Jaffa with Jerusalem. And the crane far away, which is not that far actually, 10 minutes walk max. This is where the railway station used to be. And Mr. Shlush, Aharon Shlush, who lived in the house next door, he was the one for whom that bridge was built, because even before the railway down there, there was a little wadi. You know, wadi is a dry riverbed. And once upon a time, Mr. Shlush was on his way from his house to the other side, to the German-American colony. And, well, he was in a carriage, and the horse was scared by a snake, and Ron Shlush was thrown out and he broke his arm. I'm not sure whether it's a true story or a legend, but this other way, Ron Shlush decided that this dry riverbed is not for him, and so a bridge was built specifically from his house to the other side, and here we are on this bridge till present day. The railway was abandoned soon after the declaration of the independence, and then we had another railway, and so the whole area was just junk and a parking lot. And a few years ago, it was finally transformed into sort of a little urban park, which is very well used and loved by the locals. You can walk your dog, you can walk your baby, you can walk all the way to Jaffa on this side, or you can walk all the way into Tel Aviv, connecting directly to Rothschild Boulevard, which is another 5 minutes walk from here. And as you can see, there is no lockdown any longer. And so people are walking, talking, having ice cream, and just enjoying the cool, nice afternoon breeze. Well, what you can see on the wall, some of them are graffitis, others are works of art. For instance, here, this is the decoration which was made by somebody who simply lives in this house. And well, I'm not sure I like it so much, but you know, this is a piece of art, and actually this is quite common. Here we have more graffitis on the left-hand side, and well, you know, graffitis are illegal in Israel, I guess, just as in most of the world. So they are illegal, but in the same time, the municipalities are very tolerant, and people love graffitis. And so actually we have graffiti artists, local graffiti artists, and we also have international graffiti artists who come to Israel specifically for making the graffitis. And sometimes these are really amazing works of art. Well, now we entered another street, actually one of the main streets of Neve Zedek. You can see how wide it is. Well, it is about 5 meters, maybe 15 meters, 15 feet wide. And this is one of the 3 original streets of Neve Zedek. Neve Zedek started as 48 plots, 48 houses, 48 families, and this is one of the original streets. It's quite difficult to park your car here nowadays. It's almost impossible. I would never even try. Anyhow, this house here, well, it looks more like a bush rather than a house, but there is definitely a house behind the bush. And that house used to belong to one of the families who later established Tel Aviv. But before they became one of the first families establishing Tel Aviv, they were among the first families who purchased plots and settled in Neve Zedek. And their last name is Abulafia. Mr. Abulafia, who built the house, he is the grandson of Chaim Abulafia, who was the leader of the Jewish community who settled in Tiberias and re-established Tiberias. Sorry, yeah, we have to move in the 19th century. So the great-grandfather re-established Tiberias, and his great-grandson established Neve Zedek. So Shlomo and Rivka Abulafia, they built a house, they live here, and later they moved to Tel Aviv, and then they left the house for rent. And then remember this gentleman with a brown jacket? I told you that he became a famous writer, and you will see what it looked like when he grew older. So he, as a young man, he rented this house, and this is where he wrote a book which gave him pride and publicity. And the book is named Agunot. So the gentleman, whose name is Shmuel Yosef Chachkes, he changed his name, and he used the name of the novel he wrote here as his last name. So today we know him as Shmuel Yosef, or Shai Agnon. And Shai Agnon became the one and the only Nobel Prize winner for literature, okay, in 1963, if I'm not mistaken. And what you can see now on your screen in a minute, Noam is working on it. This is a 50 shekels bill. We saw the new 50 shekels bill with Shaul Chernichovsky, and the old 50 shekels bill has Shmuel Yosef Agnon, the Nobel Prize winner, who used to live in here, in this house. And for a while, he was in love with the beautiful daughter of Aharon Shlush, just across the road. It never worked, though, because he was Ashkenazi and poor, and she was Sephardi and rich. So it never really worked. You can see the house of Shlush behind me. You can see how close it is. It's like you can almost shake hands. So, you know, Shai Agnon, he became much more famous than Aaron Shlush, but he never forgave Shlush for not letting him, you know, getting closer with his daughter. So one of the books which was written by Shai Agnon is called Tmol Shilshom, yesterday and the day before yesterday. And this is a great book which describes literally every person and every dog in that neighborhood. Okay? And there's one person who is never mentioned. There is one person in one house which is never mentioned by Yosef Agnon. And obviously, this is Aaron Shlush and his house. He just didn't see them, you know. And the lovely couple who used to live in this house, Rivka and Shlomo Abulafia, once upon a time they met a little Arab boy. His name was Said, and they sort of adopted him. I mean, you know, not legally, but they really took care of him. Young Arab Muslim boy, who later accepted their last name. So he became Sayyid Abulafia. And even later, he was the one who established the most famous, best bakery in Jaffa, which is known as Abulafia Bakery. So we have the Arab Muslim family. Now we are talking about the fourth generation there. They're making great, pastries of all kinds, and they're closed for Yom Kippur because their ancestor was adopted by a Jewish family from here. Now, as we are walking, just take a look around you. I mean, the whole thing, the whole neighborhood was supposed to be demolished and brand new, not skyscrapers maybe, but like big modern houses were supposed to be built here. And then we have the whole protest of the local residents, and not just local residents, because there is something in this little neighborhood. I hope you can feel the special atmosphere here. And so finally we decided to leave it alone. I mean, some of the houses were totally left alone. I mean, this house hardly changed at all, while other houses were very nicely renovated. If you used to, okay, not today, but years ago, if you purchased a house here, so then you had to keep part of the facade, and then you can add the second floor, even third floor. And today, these properties are like millions. They're very, very pricey. And there is something special about it. So, when the first houses were built, so they were making an advertisement. It was actually on the newspapers. That was the only media before internet. And they promised 48 plots, and each house would have a Beit Tafshil. Beit Tafshil means the house of cooking, okay, meaning kitchen. This was a term which was used back then, and today we don't use it. So Beit Tafshil, and each house would also have a Beit Kavod, okay, Beit Kavod, the house of honor. This was a very special term for bathroom, which was very special because in Old Jaffa, a few families would share a bathroom, which would be, outside in the yard. While here, every family will have a house with a bathroom, yet outside, but a private one. That was the best one could imagine and wish for. This house here, actually, we're talking about two houses which used to be adjacent, and you see that this part is brand new. This is the museum of Nahum Gutman. We mentioned Nahum Gutman already when we had that tour of Sderot Rothschild. You will see some works of art made by Nahum Gutman. So now you can see, okay, in a minute, you will see his portrait. Nahum Gutman was a little kid born in Moldova. He came here, made Aliyah with his family when he was 7 years old. And his father, Shin Beit Zion, who was a publisher, who was the writer, he was also a teacher in the school for girls we saw before. Being the teacher in the school for girls, he really, really wanted his son, Nahum Gutman, to study in that school, even though he is a boy, because he wanted him to study in Hebrew. So for a short while, Nahum Gutman was a boy in the school for girls and studied in Hebrew. I would not recommend it today, but it seems like it did good to him because he became a wonderful writer and a beautiful designer and a beautiful painter. And now you can see some of his works of art. He wrote quite a few books for children. And most of them have to do with young Tel Aviv and with Neve Zedek. He wrote a wonderful book, which is called in Hebrew, Shvil Klipot HaTapuzim, the path of the orange peels. And he just shares, the atmosphere and his experience of life in Neve Zedek in Tel Aviv. And then, when he grew older, he made a design for the most famous mosaic in Tel Aviv, which is placed in the Kolbo Shalom, right next to the house of Dizengoff, where the Declaration of the Independence took place. And this is what you see now in front of you. Unfortunately, we cannot visit a mosaic because it is a office building and a shopping mall, and it's closed now, but that's what it looks like. And again, you can see the history from Jaffa to modern Tel Aviv, designed by Nahum Gutman. So now this is the museum of Nahum Gutman, and originally this house belonged to a family which listed to three very well known Israeli writers. Okay, one of them is Chaim Brenner, if you are familiar with the name. If not, again, this is a different story. So today in Neve Zedek, we have a mixed population of very rich people, old people, and very young people who would probably never be able to purchase a house here, but right now they just rent a house, students and just young people, because rent is not that expensive, while purchase is very difficult. But all of these houses, each house here is different, and each one of them has a different atmosphere, and the little synagogues and the different stories which are connected to each one of the houses, and plenty of cats, as we always see in Israel. That house here is Beit Rokach. You can even see it printed on the wall. And that house belonged to Shimon Rokach, the gentleman I showed you before on the wall, and I told you, don't forget him. So Shimon Rokach, or Hasar, Sir Shimon Rokach, he was among the founders of the company which established Neve Zedek. That house behind me, it was altered and renovated, but basically this is the house where he lived. And there was a competition between him, Shimon Rokach, and Aaron Shlush, who will build the first house in Neve Zedek. So they finished both houses more or less the same time. And so we may say that the two houses are the first houses of Neve Zedek. One of the main streets in modern Tel Aviv is Shderot Rokach, the Rokach Boulevard, along the Yarkon Park, and it is named after a relative of Shimon Rokach, who became the mayor of Tel Aviv. Today, there is a museum dedicated to the history of Neve Zedek and Shimon Rokach. So the bigger part of this house is a museum, and the other part belongs to the granddaughter of Shimon Rokach, and she's an artist, and her name is Leah Majaromin. She's about 95 years old now. And well, I would like Noam to show you two of the sculptures. Yeah, it's a bit difficult because of the fence. Right now you can see the sculptures. These are two ladies, two naked ladies, which don't look too good. Okay, actually they look as if somebody took a big balloon and then the air left the balloon, and these are the leftovers. They really look bad. And you can see only two of them, but there are so many more inside the house and inside the museum. And these are the artworks of Leah Majaromin. And when she was asked about what is it, she would say, well, you know, modern women, they're so miserable. They have to work and they have to cook and they have to drive and they have to take care of the kids and they have, you know, they have to do so much. So eventually when they grow older, they become like balloons with no air. So she said she really feels sorry for these women. And well, definitely, if this is what she felt, and yeah, this is what she saw in modern women. I disagree, and I hope you will all disagree, because I think that even though we, the ladies, we have so much to do, but we still good looking, right? Okay, now we are taking a left. We are towards the end of our tour, and this is actually the end of Neve Zedek as well. We came along one of these original streets of Neve Zedek, and here this is another one which is parallel, okay, named Stein. And then we will reach the third and the last, and that's it. A tiny little neighborhood, and as soon as Neve Zedek ends, another little neighborhood starts, which is called Shabazi, which is now famous for its boutiques and jewelry stores and wonderful gelato called Anita. Okay, straightforward, but we will stick to Neve Zedek. Okay, this is the last station. And well, I just told Noam to move because I want you to look at this building behind me. It doesn't look like much, and as you can see, it really needs to be renovated. Unfortunately, nobody takes care of it. I mean, we had all different ideas and all different suggestions for the house. Oops. Okay, somebody is driving his big black car here. Oh, this is an Audi. All right, so this building right behind me, which was supposed to become this and this and that, is still nothing. But before 1975, actually 1974, that was a cinema. That was the first and the biggest and the most famous cinema in Tel Aviv. Where is Tel Aviv? Well, today this is Tel Aviv. But back then, when it was built in 1913, Tel Aviv was not yet here. Tel Aviv was this way. And I hope you can see two big glass buildings behind me. These two buildings are next to Rothschild Boulevard and Herzl Street. So Tel Aviv was over there. But in 1913, they decided to build a cinema outside of Tel Aviv, next to Neve Zedek, you know, not to be in the middle of everything. Later it became. So this is a cinema called Eden, like the Garden of Eden. And when it was built, well, now we need a bit of Hebrew. You know, in Hebrew, cinema is kolnoa. Okay, kolnoa. Kolnoa comes from two words, kol, meaning sound, okay, or voice, and noa. Noa is movement, okay? So kolnoa is a moving sound. Well, sort of makes sense. But in the beginning, it had no sound. It was just mute, right? We could see only pictures. And so originally the cinema was called Re'i Noa. Re'iya, viewing, and Noa. So anyhow, 1913, first Re'inoa, later Kolnoa, and later abandoned. So it was emptied. It has no roof to it. There is nothing inside. And this is quite sad because that could have been a, I don't know, performance zal, recreation area. I'm not sure what. Yeah, it was big enough for 1,100 people to sit down and watch a movie. And when this movie was still muted, so they would have an orchestra to play music. And then the sound was invented, but the orchestra had a very strong workers' organization. So the orchestra was paid 3 more years after they were not needed any longer. But then finally they were fired. And just to finish the story of the cinema and of our tour, one of the best known Israeli movies, actually the first real Israeli bestseller movie, had to do with this cinema. And this is, the film is called Eskimo Limon. Now you will see the photo of one of the actors, one of my favorites. I think she looks a little bit like Brooke Shields. Her name is Anat Atzmon. And here in this cinema and here in this movie, Eskimo Limon, she was filmed and she became a legend ever since. Okay, yes, and now you can see, yes, this is another. Isn't she a bit like Brooke Shields? I don't think she is. Well, so this is the end of Neve Zedek tour. And if we keep walking straight forward up Lily Bloom Street, so in about 10 minutes, we would make it to Sderot Rothschild, and then the story of Tel Aviv starts. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for walking. And now I will move to stand next to Noam. And we are open to questions and discussions and etc. Oh, the black car moves away. Okay, we are moving a little bit aside.
Julia?
Yes.
I was wondering who is operating the teleprompter with all the details and all the encyclopedic information you've been telling us.
well, to tell you the truth, no. It's I'm a tour guide. I used to be a tour guide course coordinator. I'm supposed to know that. And then I also checked a few details in the internet just before we started walking. But thank you.
Noam only has 2 arms. So how does he do it?
Okay, thank you.
The secret. It won't be secret.
Okay, how was the signal today?
I think it's better.
Yeah.
Better.
Ilana, how was yours?
Tel Aviv is known for its good signal.
Oh, so I don't know if it was Tel Aviv or because we went through Steve.
Yeah, I know. So we will check again next week, and then we will make a final decision. But anyhow, I'm glad that it was good today for this or other reason.
Yes.
Thank you, Gail. Yeah. We were showing you some parts of neighborhood. Yeah, it's a tiny little but real charming neighborhood, and highly recommended to visit it, whenever possible.
Well, it was great to take our mind on a nice tour, not involving politics or pressure or starvation, and just enjoy the world as it is in front of you. Thank you for explaining it in such a nice, calm manner. And Noam, your photography sense is really good. Looking
Thank
at
you.
interesting scenes.
Thank you. I thought this tour just was a bit less than the average, but I hope it was fine.
Well, Noam is not satisfied with
Yeah.
himself. But
Well-
Lisa said that it was an excellent tour, so we will take, Lisa, thank you. We'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
Noah, what do you do when you're not following your mother around?
I mostly learn. Yeah, I'm learning computer science from home.
Okay.
I
Very
finished,
good.
Yeah, he graduated
months
high
ago.
school, and he could either join the army or go for, continued studies. So he's learning computer programming and computer engineering now on Zoom.
So you don't have to go into the army?
Oh, I will.
Yeah,
You
no,
will.
it's,
Just delaying, right?
Maybe.
yeah, it's
Smart
just
move.
he has no, like, if he was a girl, so he could get married, but because if you're married, you don't have to do the army, but it's only for girls, not for boys. So he will be a soldier at some point.
Or
Yeah, but if
maybe
you're
an
getting
officer.
some background, you can get maybe a good position in the army if you're learning a skill.
Yeah, that's the idea. This is one of the reasons. This is actually the main reason why he decided to study first and join the army later.
Sure. Julia, can you tell something about next week?
Okay, I had a question.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So let's